The lowest moment has actually come through like outside Naya life happening. So when you're a founder and there's a lot going on and you're channeling so much energy into building your business, you can do that if you have stability outside of work. There has been quite a few instances this year especially where for me that stability has fallen away outside of work. Various different reasons, but it just makes the pressure harder to navigate.
Hello guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Nova and Boba podcast. Today we are so excited to welcome Holly. She is the co-founder of Naya, the world's first free AI-powered WhatsApp careers coach. At 25, she raised a whopping 1.5 million in pre-seed funding from some of the UK's leading investors. We're incredibly excited to have Holly here with us today, but before we begin, let's hear from this episode's sponsor.
Hey guys, Jack here from the Nova and Boba podcast. This episode of the Nova and Boba podcast is proudly sponsored by Shoreditch Exchange. Whether you're a freelancer, startup, or established business, Shoreditch Exchange offers flexible workspace solutions tailored to your needs. Choose from private offices, dedicated desks, or communal co-working areas, all designed to foster creativity and collaboration. Located just a 90-second walk from Hoxton Station, Shoreditch Exchange is easily accessible and surrounded by the vibrant energy of London's creative district. Visit shoreditchexchange.com to learn more and book a tour today. Now, let's dive back into today's episode.
The next session of the podcast is Never Have I Ever. So we're going to drink if you've done this. So
Okay.
Never have I ever bombed an investor pitch.
Bombed an investor pitch? What is bombed?
Like you didn't do well. Like you got off that pitch and you're like, nah. Tell us more about that.
There was one pitch in particular, and me and my co-founder always laugh about it because we went into it together, and usually we are like weirdly in tune, and like bounce off each other really, really well, and we come out of it and we're like, wow, you basically are finishing my sentences. But there was this one instance where he'd just come off of a different meeting or come out of a different call with another investor or someone who basically just planted all of these seeds of like these wild ideas in his head. And he's like a big ideas guy, so came into the call with all of these big ideas. And then I was sat there and I was like, hold on, like this,
we've not discussed it.
This isn't like the plan of action moving forward. And you could just tell that the guy we were pitching to was as confused as both of us were about what was going on. And we came out half an hour later and we were like, well, I don't think we'll be hearing from him.
Did you?
But no. I mean, we did, but it was not for me right now, as always. Yeah.
Not you and your crazy ideas.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so never have I ever stayed up all night to meet a startup deadline. Never. Oh, good
I'm not an all-nighter kind of person. I actually am more likely to
finish it. Oh no.
I'm more likely to, if I've got, for example, if I had like a morning deadline or something, I would actually work until, I don't know, say like 9 o'clock. I would have like an hour of downtime because I do need downtime in the evening, which is not like different to obviously the morning. And then I would just get up at like 4 a.m.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm best in the morning. Like even this morning, I had loads to do this morning. And so I stopped last night when I was like in a lull and I was like, just going to get up. I'll get up at 4 and I'll just crack on.
I got this question from the Jay Shetty podcast. And yeah, when he was interviewing Emma, co-founder of Good American. And I really like to know who Holly was as a child. And was there anything that you used to do that you think defines what you do today?
I think I'm a big believer that early childhood shapes you a lot. I think
there's a lot of evidence for that too.
Yeah. Of course. I think for one thing, I I've always been surrounded by people who really just like support you and believe in you. So for example, I remember when I was young, I went to a state school, but it was a state grammar, and the expectation was that firstly I scraped into that school because I literally, as a kid, all I wanted to do was spend my time outside playing and like climbing trees and all this kind of thing. And
so sitting down
my
and
mum was
practicing
like,
verbal
you
reasoning
need
tests.
to, like read books. And like my older sister is really academic. So she'd gone on to go to this grammar school. And so my parents, she was doing really well there. So my parents were like, great, give it a go. You can do this. Anyway, so I kind of scraped my way into the school. And I think because it was a grammar school, the expectation was that everyone will go on to university and do like a really typical career route. So many people now in like consulting, doctors, lawyers, all of the kind of jobs where I suppose the expectation is you go to university, acquire a very specialist skill set, go on to kind of earn loads of money and be happy and la-di-da-di-da.
And that's your life, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And thankfully, I think my parents probably realised quite early on that wasn't the path that was right for me. And as I kind of said earlier, from quite a young age, I knew in my head, I was like, I want to have a business of my own someday. I obviously had no idea what that would look like.
Why did you want a business? You know, I'm just wondering, was there anything you saw that you were like, oh, I'm going to be a business owner?
So my dad was always very entrepreneurial, albeit not a business owner as such. But I remember that when I was young, he always had these really abstract ideas. Like I remember there was there was one point in time where he came up with this new board game concept.
That is entrepreneurial.
Yeah, and like it was kind of like a weird variation on Monopoly, and like he spent so much time on it. We used to play it at Christmas, and so I think it really excited me, like that whole kind of idea of doing things slightly differently and coming up with new ideas. And then I remember when I was small, my mum bought me, I say small, this was probably like 16, my mum bought me this book, which was like, it's not how good you are, it's how good you want to be. Aww. And I just remember I read through that book and it was all about entrepreneurship and this kind of thing. And I was like, maybe I can do it. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that more than anything, I've been shaped by the support around me that just made me think that I could take the less trodden path, if you will. I did end up going to university, but that was because I specifically found a course that enabled me to actually work in startups, work in VC, study entrepreneurship. And it was also the case of at the time when I was 16, I was like, I don't have a business idea. Yeah. If I am I ready to actually take this leap straight away?
So you really knew you were going to be an entrepreneur? Like,
I it's more just the draw to startups, I think, because I never thought I'm going to start a business just for the sake of it. Yeah. If I didn't have a good idea, I would have very happily worked in and moved into somebody else's startup. But it's just this fear of being a small cog in a big machine. And I have friends that work in the corporate world who that's not the case for. I think that's just been instilled in me for years and years and years, that it's almost like a fear now. So naturally drifted. Yeah.
Have you ever tried the corporate life?
No, I mean, the closest I got probably was VC.
Fairs. Oh yeah.
But it's a weird one because obviously you're so in the startup world. Yeah. And yet there are a lot of elements to it that do feel very corporate. Yeah. But like VC's the hierarchies, the rigidity, everything like that.
And did you enjoy uni, actually? I wanted to ask.
I did.
Did you like going?
Yeah, I really did. In the same way that I didn't thrive academically in school, I didn't love the learning element, but I loved everything else that came with it. Yeah.
Uni was still a fun time, even though you might end up doing nothing with it, which I think most people don't.
Especially the way that things are going. I just think that, looking back, if I was to do it again now, I don't think I would go to uni.
Really?
No.
Why not?
Because even though I enjoyed it, I think the learnings that I took from it, the actual learnings that I've transferred into work and life today all came through work placements. Yeah. And also with the way that portfolio careers are growing and the cost of uni, it feels like university curriculums are not moving quick enough.
They're not,
that you can now learn in work, on the job, from people around you, with resources online at a much quicker pace.
I agree, but I've always thought that, you know, getting into work so early, like people have their whole lives to work.
Yeah.
And then maybe this uni's like this nice sort of middle ground where you're not really working. You can kind of just hang out with friends all day. And
yeah. But then that's it, right? It's also how it boils down to, you have to have some degree of privilege to be able to go to university and be able to sit in it and enjoy it for those elements rather than actually thinking about how it's supporting you longer term.
It's true.
So
it's a massive privilege to be like, here for 3 years for fun. Like,
yeah.
And me and my friend, we were looking at our student loan, and we were thinking,
yeah, honestly,
it's like a hefty. It's not cheap, and it's. My friend's trying to pay us off, and it didn't actually shift.
Yeah,
because there was the interest on it. It's like
and you're not taught that either.
No, you're not. No one really tells you that.
Especially when you're in a school environment where, as was the case with me, the expectation is that you will just go to university.
That was just
it's never even called into question whether it's the right decision for you academically, financially, moving forward. So, that needs a whole shake up.
That holds and things are happening, which is good. I think everyone should have options, and I think that's the main thing. So the next section of the podcast, we really want to get into what you do at Naya, because the podcast, we're here to talk about how you built Naya from the ground up. So what is Naya, and how did this startup come to life?
Okay, I will start with how it came to life, and then I'll explain what we do now. So the origin of Naya has essentially our kind of big mission has always been to level the playing field, in the sense that we want to make it possible for anyone, no matter their background, to pursue their chosen career, whatever that may be. And the origin actually came from an instance where my co-founder, he was working in like a big consultancy at the time. He got a cab home from work one evening, got chatting to his driver, who had a degree in computer science and a master's in something else. And yet he was driving cabs, right? And the reason my co-founder was coming back in a cab late from work is because they were so under-resourced and desperate for talent, right? Yeah. So he was like, how come you're driving cabs, not helping me out? And from that, I mean, we've all had instances where that's been the case, right? Whether you're in a cafe talking to someone, whether you're walking past a homeless person on the street and asking them who they are, and kind of everything like that. There are so many people that are overskilled and not actually finding a way to break through in the market. That was where it originally came about. Both myself and my co-founder had also done a lot of volunteering and kind of have always been very close to communities who I suppose don't have necessarily doors opened for them along the way, and who are facing bigger barriers to accessing opportunity. And
people think then, like, you know, they're not qualified. These people are just way overqualified. Like, you wouldn't even believe how educated they are.
Absolutely. And it's so ironic, because then you chat to heads of HR and they're like, we can't find good talent anywhere. And it's actually not about there being a misbalance of talent and opportunity. It's actually about joining the dots and joining the two together. So when we first started, we were focusing on refugee communities. We would partner with refugee charities. We would partner with training providers and employers and upskill people directly to then match them straight into work. It was kind of more of an offline service, if you will, while we were doing testing in the early days. And then...
Did you know it'd be a startup, or were you testing it as like a sort of...
Yeah, we knew that it was going to be a startup from the outset. And then that just kind of evolved over time. I think the closer we got to the users and the problem, we just realised that on their side, and I think there's so much that's wrong with the kind of recruitment world,
There is, yeah.
there's actually, when we started Naya, we were founded under this premise that talent is everywhere and opportunity isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, over time, we've learned that talent is everywhere, but so is opportunity. And actually, one of the hardest things at the moment is that information is everywhere. You can literally Google anything. You can say, hey, Siri, you can call Alexa to answer any question that you have. But it's all well and good you being able to find thousands of free training programs online, loads of job opportunities, being able to use AI to help you left, right, and centre in your career. But unless you are clear on what that path looks like and what the right next step is for you, it can actually just add to the overwhelm and complexity of careers. So when we learned that actually that was the biggest challenge that the community members were facing, we were like, we just need to break it down. We just need to make this so simple. So what we've done is Naya is an aggregator. We're kind of like a non-partisan middle player in that we have partnerships with loads of training providers, with employers, service providers, anyone that kind of helps any part of your career, whether you're trying to refine your application, edit your CV, network, attend events, find training, you name it. We bring all of them into our kind of marketplace, if you will.
Nice.
And then it's about matching people to the right thing. So now all of that is done through WhatsApp. So people don't even need to download another app. They don't need to.
That's the other thing. Downloading other apps. It's just
or creating a profile on another platform. You don't have to do any of that. No profiles, no apps. You literally just message one number on WhatsApp, and it's an agentic tool. So behind the scenes, you ask it for job opportunities. It's not just going to come back and tell you what jobs you should be applying for. It will actually scrape all of that information, those sources, to send you links to things to apply to. Same with CVs. You ask it to update your CV. It won't just send you tips.
Brilliant.
You send it your CV and it will send you one back for you. So it's all around actually starting to do things on people's behalf to help save time and ease that complexity.
And what's been the feedback from the WhatsApp?
So we actually only launched the WhatsApp tool. It was 2 weeks ago on Wednesday.
I'm glad you're breaking it on here.
So it's really, really fresh. We've had 7,000 messages received so far, and feedback. There's been so much feedback. It's actually incredible because that's what you're looking for, right? When you're building something out and taking it to market. I think the main realization that people are having is how much of a time saver it is and how much easier it is making that whole job search process. And it's so funny. We have some people that come and are using the tool who have been looking for a job for ages and are using it purely to apply to roles. We have some people who have been in a career for a really long time. They're thinking of maybe a career switch. They're trying to question whether their skills are relevant for the market ahead. Some people are coming on and asking because they want to upskill in AI because they're aware of the fact that that's the direction that their business is moving in and they want to be ahead of the curve. So there's people at different stages that are interacting with it, but generally speaking, feedback, obviously it's free. It's how can we make this experience as personalized as possible. And the beauty of it is the more you chat,
the more personalized it gets.
AI
is crazy. And I was thinking, have you formally, so for your VC role, did you formally apply? Because I was wondering how have you got so close to the problem when you've mainly from uni started your own business?
So I haven't. So I've through uni. So the reason why I picked the course is that it had multiple placements through it. So when I've worked in VC, it was as one of the placements. And then I've also worked in quite a lot of accelerators. So I worked for one accelerator called the Baobab Network. They're one of the biggest funders across Africa. So they brand themselves as YC for Africa.
Do they? Nice.
And with that, I was able to travel to different countries in Africa and work on the ground with founders, all of whom were innovating and using technology to tackle social issues. So whether it was edtech, health tech, fintech, all kind of helping society at large.
So you saw a lot of
that was this kind of social enterprise element. And then again, I continued. So the VC I worked for was part of Rocket Internet. So then I worked for Rocket Internet. I worked within one of their incubators while I was at uni. And then I worked for another accelerator, which is where the YC startup span out of. Nice. Yeah, it wasn't kind of straight from uni, straight into founding.
It was, you had other experiences.
A lot of like learning along the way from other founders, thankfully. Yeah.
Fairs. And how did you find that process of then starting your own thing from working in VC? Because some people don't sometimes it's normally founding then VC, but you've kind of done it the other way around.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I knew I wanted to get the VC exposure because it helps on so many levels. It
does, yeah.
Like, it's so funny. I can now look at a pitch deck and I know whether when I was in the VC's shoes,
you would take a meeting.
Yeah, exactly. And even just understanding the language, because there is so much to learn when you start a business. No different to stepping into any industry for the first time. Yeah. Like when you talk about product market fit and all these,
what does it even mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And people just throw these terms around, and if you're completely fresh into the space, it can be really overwhelming. Yeah. And same when you go out and fundraise, having worked in VC and knowing then how
the process, what it takes,
things work, what things should look like, what they care about, helped a lot. So it was a really conscious decision
to do that, right?
To do that first. And don't get me wrong, you know, maybe when Naya's exited for all the money in the world, then I might dabble back into VC.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it's actually
when you've got like a different perspective, like a founder perspective. Yeah,
exactly.
Because I actually worked in an internship at a VC. It was called, you know what, I want to shout them out, Future VC, because they have an application program that's opening soon, and it was the first into VC. Like it's for like female and diverse founders, and I just would have never known about this world, like entrepreneurship. Like it's the lifeblood of. I get so passionate about this, but it's the lifeblood of society. Like people don't understand that businesses and startups really do change the world we live in. So that's incredible that you had that opportunity to see what VCs do.
Definitely. And as you say, I think it's also quite hard when you're young to break into VC. Yeah. But there are a lot out there. I mean, I did mine in Berlin. So I moved to Berlin and did a stint there.
You were working in the VC, then you had this idea for Naya. Could you give us the process of really getting it off the ground? Like, who are your team members? How did you convince people to work with you? How did you get your first bit of money, you know?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this. So when I came into Naya, I didn't come in as a co-founder.
Oh, did you not?
No.
I didn't know that.
So I came in as head of growth.
So Naya was already running?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I came in as head of growth and then I was made a co-founder.
What were you doing that was so fundamental that they were like, we want to bring you on as co-founder? And then after that, how did you go about raising?
So the business really changed when I joined, and I think that's probably why it kind of went through a bit of a transition. So as I said, when Naya started, it was very kind of offline, service-based, partnering with charities, running cohorts of people. Essentially, when I came in, it was like, how do we turn this into a product business, a high growth startup? How do I take every learning from Rocket, all these accelerators that I've been in, to essentially build something that can really scale? Because we could see the impact that it was having at a really small scale, both to the users and to the businesses, that we know that we're onto something, but unless you have the technology to support it, I mean, we've now got a North Star. We want to help 100 million people. You're not going to get to 100 million people with a service offering. So
you've got to use tech,
That's, I think, where I kind of stepped in, and then naturally the future for Naya then looked very different.
So you knew you could use AI for social good using tech. That's a big thing to think about. I don't know if that,
It's, again, it's one of those things. Especially when AI was first taking off, there is so much conversation around how AI is exacerbating social inequalities.
Is it?
and how it's taking everyone's jobs and all this kind of thing. But in reality, like any technology, you can also leverage it to close those gaps and for social good. So I think for us, for our team, it was kind of a bit of a no-brainer that we would be using AI for the opposite.
Okay, brilliant. We've got a bit of a speed round, just to get to know you a little bit better. So, what is your morning ritual to stay grounded as an entrepreneur?
To stay grounded,
Yeah,
I'm going to be really, really honest here. My morning routine is near non-existent.
fair enough.
I used to be one of these people that I was up every day, 5 a.m, thriving.
Really?
I would study in the morning, go to the gym, then go to work, and but just was really on it. Whereas now I get up,
Start work.
Yeah.
Is it because you've got pressing things?
I perform best in the morning. And so I think...
So then you can't spend all your time at the gym.
Don't get me wrong. It would be lovely to, carve the time to sit and have a cup of tea and kind of meditate and journal before starting work. But if I'm performing at my best as soon as I get up in the morning, I would rather jump out of bed and get straight into the office, first one in, crack on, and then when it gets the evening and I find that things flatten out. That's probably not the dream answer.
I completely agree with you, because there was so much pressure when you hear all this entrepreneur to wake up at 5 and
honestly
do things that other people do. But I think the most successful people work along where they work best, you know? If it's even late at night. Some people are working till 3 a.m. That's what they do best.
And comparing yourself to every other entrepreneur out there, it's no different to comparison in any vein of life. Everyone is different. Everyone operates differently. So just because one entrepreneur is thriving and their business is taking off and doing really well, it doesn't mean that their playbook is going to work for you. Yeah. And you've
got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, I do want to get back into it. I've got a shoulder injury, but I used to go to the gym really early in the morning, but I got so tired at lunchtime because... And I realised I can't be living this way. This is not just because someone said this on YouTube doesn't mean it's good.
No, exactly.
What do you think about user value versus what users want? I know this sounds... The reason I asked this is because I had this issue with a podcast.
Yeah.
A lot of short form content out there. I just prefer longer pieces.
Yeah.
But actually people are telling us that they like these short clips. However, I feel like the value comes from the longer pieces. So can you still... What I'm trying to say is that are value what you think someone would value and what they want, two different things?
I think the thing is, it's what they value.
What they value. Oh, right. Not what is value. Okay.
But because I mean, yes, a longer form piece of content might be more valuable in that you're delivering more information. But if that person values the fact that they are able to quickly get a learning and move on, then that's the value that they are seeking. So it's again just boils down to understanding of the user.
And I always think that of social media as well.
Yeah.
How much value, not to completely divert the conversation, but how much value when they're trying to, keep us on the app longer, is that valuable for us?
Yeah. But again, it's why are we using social media? Are people using social media because they are valuing the fact that they're suddenly getting an escape from the busy day they've had or whatever? Are they valuing social media because they are... I don't know. I mean, I don't think anyone uses social media really as an educational piece, but everyone takes something different from it. But it's actually just understanding what it is that someone takes from it, because it could be as simple as valuing something because it's a distraction.
Fair. Okay.
And that's fine, but you need to understand
that's the value
that is what you're offering.
So, what is the biggest fundraising myth you'd like to debunk as an ex-VC?
Biggest fundraising myth. There is the I don't really know if it's a myth, but I don't want to say the wrong thing here.
Don't be afraid.
I would say the biggest myth is that there's this kind of persona that everyone has in their mind about VCs, right? Mm-hmm. That they're really, really bullish, that they are kind of, that you're lucky to get their money.
Yeah.
That's the kind of narrative in this space.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and I say this all the time, that they're lucky to actually be able to invest in your business.
Yeah.
Not only are they lucky, it is also their job.
To find the best.
Like, they literally, VCs have funds that they have to deploy. And it is their responsibility to find the startups that actually fulfill the criteria that they're looking for. So there's this real kind of misalignment, I think, of power in the startup world. So I don't necessarily know if it's a myth as such, but
the myth is that you're going to them begging. It's more like it should be a partnership. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And also just don't let them treat you like crap, because I also do think, and this may come back and bite me, I do think that sometimes that power persona can actually go to investors' heads a little bit. And yeah, I've been in rooms of startups that I've worked at before as a founder, even in VC, where you see that dynamic playing out in a really, actually quite like unkind way.
Yeah, I agree.
And founders just you don't have to put up with that.
What do you mean by unkind?
Like the questioning.
Yeah.
Like pushing founders as if they're on the kind of back foot, they're not in the know. I think you're giving your time, your energy to this startup because it could be something really, really big. And so it's a privilege that they have the opportunity to even come and join you on that
founder.
journey.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's talk about money, because a lot of the people that listen to the podcast, they want to start a startup or they want to start a business, but yeah, most of them are scared of, how to actually finance it. So I'm going to dig into that. So can you let us know a bit about your fundraising strategy at Naya?
Yeah. So we have raised 1.5 mil to date, all from angel investors.
That's a lot.
And that has been quite a strategic play. We knew that we only wanted angels up until this point. We are now starting to explore VC ahead of a seed round, which will probably be like Q2, maybe Q3 next year, kind of to be decided. And for us, the angel strategy was, we basically wanted to make sure that the angel network behind us was a combination of experts that covered kind of all different areas of Naya. So we've got like heads of HR who are investors who obviously come from that kind of B2B lens and can help us then with monetization and revenue. We've got serial entrepreneurs who have been through that growth journey, who have exited businesses before, who we can turn to for advice at different stages. We've got people who have come from core recruitment. We've got people who are like big philanthropists and who care passionately about the cause that we're kind of solving at the core. So actually being able to bring angels into that early fundraising stage has meant that we've got such an amazing network of people around us. We have people that we can go to for whatever we need, but ultimately people that will just cheer us along.
Yeah, how did you find these people?
Good question. All over the place. Literally such a combination. We brought in some through cold outreach.
Nice. On LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, yep. When when you start to define, no different to users, we actually started to define what our different investor personas were. So as I just mentioned, there's like a handful of different kind of categories, if you will, that most of them will have fallen into. So we did cold outreach that way. Obviously leveraged networks on networks on networks. Right. Everyone you know, everyone you meet, asking them who they know, who we can meet, that they can then kind of introduce us to.
How did you get comfortable doing that? I've just always found that uncomfortable. Like, can you introduce me to the next? Like,
you just have to do it.
Just have to do it.
Yeah,
okay.
just have absolutely no shame. Because I think a lot of the time, especially when you're younger, your network isn't as vast, and also
especially with people that don't money.
Exactly, right? Like, I remember we opened, actually, and this was another kind of strategic play, we opened a investment syndicate, and there was obviously the opportunity that like other family and friends could come into it, and I was like, I haven't got any family or friends that are going to be able to tap into this and join it. And I was like, don't get me wrong, I'll send it out to the group chats that I'm a part of, but I'm not going to get much cash from there. But we did do a syndicate through, we did it through Odin, where we basically brought in, it meant that we could reduce our ticket size, and obviously all of them are then kind of collated together on our cap table. So it means that despite the fact that you've brought in lots of investment from angels, the cap table just is a little bit cleaner, which does help. Helps if you are planning on raising from VC down the line. Some VCs might look at a really busy cap table and be like, I'm not touching that. There's too many people involved. But Odin like really helped us with that. So people could come in on as little as $1,000.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a really cool way to invest.
And it also helps to get even more people championing you, because even if someone's only invested $1,000 in your business, say they've only invested in like 5 or 10 companies before, it's a bit like crowdfunding platforms, right? Like if you've invested in a B2C or a product business through Crowdcube or one of them, then you're going to be buying that product. You're going to be telling your friends that they should buy that product. Like all of our investors, no matter how small their ticket is, they're like, I want an Naya jumper. I want to be walking around London, like waving the Naya flag. Whenever I chat to anyone, a partner, an employer, my own employer, I want to tell them to work with Naya. So
it's actually helpful to have all these people.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like another subset of our community, which has been incredible.
Yeah. What motivated your decision to exclusively raise from angels?
When we first started the fundraising process, we weren't 100% sure. Having worked in VC and worked very closely with a lot of other VCs through other startups, I knew that I didn't want to work with a VC at an early stage that didn't really, really believe in the problem, the people that we're helping, and I suppose that we're kind of in touch with the impact side of what we were doing. Because right now, Naya's product is free for everyone, and it will always be free for everyone. We do not want to be adding a barrier to access. Don't get me wrong, 10 years down the line, it might be that if you want to generate 10 CVs a month rather than 5, we're asking you to pay £1, but it's never going to be like extortionate prices. Exactly. So no different to kind of like the Facebook models and the LinkedIn's. Like the expectation is that for a while you're not going to be generating millions and millions of pounds in revenue. So I then knew that we were never going to be prepared to sacrifice that.
Oh yeah, so someone
revenue.
that didn't get that,
exactly,
you didn't want on board.
Yeah, 100%. So going into it, we did have some early conversations for pre-seed with some VCs, and there were some that we got to, pretty late stages with, like getting to the whole kind of due diligence phase. But ultimately, I don't think we ever found that kind of click. And when we realised the value that angels were bringing to the table, and the fact that we were actually quite good at raising from angels,
then you were like,
we were like, why would we not? Because it also means that we're sitting in a place now where we have a board of people that are actually just like supporters rather than dictators. And it has meant that we've been able to get to where we are today.
Yeah, if you could go back, would you raise the same amount or would you like do things differently?
Yeah, I think there are things that I would do differently, but I don't think raising is one of them. Yeah. Because
it's good. I think you really did a very strategic.
Yeah, I mean, we've raised the money that we've needed to raise to get us to where we are, and the problem that we're solving is so incredibly complicated. Like, it can't be downplayed. There's just so many elements and so many stakeholders involved, hence why no one has solved it before. So I think there could have been some more strategic things that we could have done differently to potentially get to close to kind of product market fit and where we are today, but wouldn't be fundraising.
Did you ever have any disagreements with anyone apart from that angel on maybe how much your salary was, what the different things?
The only conversation that I suppose where there's been like a disagreement with an investor has been actually a conversation with an investor where they're asking why you're paying yourself not enough.
Oh, that's good.
And I think that when I understand when you're really early stage and when you haven't got access to capital, it's typically the founders who will take a bit of a salary sacrifice, right? And don't get me wrong, even now we are still, when I compare the founders to other people in the team, our salaries just don't even compare because we obviously have taken that sacrifice. But also the reason what this angel was saying is you need to pay yourself enough to live and not worry about live happily as well. Because if you're not living a comfortable life outside of work, then you're not going to be your best self at work, and you're going to start resenting
the problem and
the fact that you are running this company. So just make sure you're paying yourself enough.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you knew, but I used to run an ed tech, and then I wasn't paying myself really pretty much anything. Was doing it for 4 years without barely any payment. And then I now, if anyone asks me about the education system in schools, I hate that space so much because I felt it just drove me to the ground.
Scars you, right?
Yeah. So, tell us about a time you thought Naya might fail. What happened and how did you handle it?
There was one point before we made this pivot that we thought that we needed to focus more on revenue than we did. And it meant that my whole energy shifted towards focusing on employers. And the problem with that is that, like I said earlier, because the recruitment world is double-sided. It's like any marketplace. You need to kind of balance it in the right way. But by focusing too heavily on the employers, we were losing sight of what our users needed.
Yeah. But then if no one's paying, but do you think if the users love something enough, someone is going to pay for that?
Exactly.
Fairs.
Yeah. And investors, revenue, it's like a magnet to engagement. So user volume, user engagement, having people that are using your product every single day, attention, that's the kind of economy that we live in now. People pay for people's attention. So if our product is good enough for our users, which this WhatsApp tool is, then we're finding companies and investors coming our way. And we're hold on, we're not even focusing on you guys right now.
Because we're trying to get people to love it as much.
But there was a point where we had that balance the wrong way around. And it's also not where our hearts are. So the motivation and the kind of alignment and the speed with which the team were working started to slow because it wasn't giving us the fuel to the fire that we needed.
You're concentrating on the business,
Yeah, which is what we've got back today.
Fair enough. And how did you realise that? Were you just realising that you just were slowing down?
Yeah, it was literally, there was just a moment. I can picture it in my head, the moment where I just had this realization and I was like, this is not working. And I just looked around me at the team, and I was looking at kind of our progress metrics and everything. And I was like, we just need to have a big shake up. And I was at an event yesterday, and someone was saying how obviously when you're in the trenches, it's really, really hard to actually take a step back and check that
if it's working. Yeah,
exactly,
like a temperature check.
Yeah. And I just had one of those moments, and we literally the following day called a big strategy meeting. The founders got together, and we were like, right, we need to do a big reset. Got the team together, and we said, we're going back to the user value. We're going back to those startup fundamentals. Are we solving the problem? What do we need to build, and how can we do it quickly?
Brilliant, fantastic. And there's a couple of things that came to mind that I really wanted to dig into. Slightly off topic, and it's going back to a previous conversation, but how did you then explore equity with your founders when you were head of growth initially?
It's equal.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's one thing nobody told you about becoming a founder?
Don't get me wrong, your startup is your baby. And yeah, you think about it all the time, and you're constantly thinking, how can I improve this, this, and this, and it's hard to switch off. But it doesn't mean that you start missing out on everything else in life. And I think it's a choice that founders make. You can go into that journey and be like, right, this is it. For the next 10 years, I'm not
socializing.
This is my life. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't think people talk about it enough. No. I have an incredible life outside of Naya. And I have friends who don't run in the startup world. And I'm so grateful that I have that, because it does mean that you are able to switch off a little bit, which actually then means that you do have more energy when you come to work.
But what do you feel about people? Some people love their startups so much that they feel like they don't ever have to switch off,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always wondered that, people just sometimes love what they do. Like completely.
Yeah. I think there's a line.
For you personally,
yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. And sometimes forcing yourself over that line is actually a really good thing.
Have you ever had any doubts about Naya's business model?
Well, at the moment, obviously, we aren't generating revenue.
Fair.
So,
or your proposed business model, what you think it would be?
No, I guess as in, even that might scare some people. But it's funny because actually I've never felt more confident in what we're doing. And yet actually we're bringing in less money than we have for the last 12 months.
So you have not even concepts of like Donald Trump concepts of
So we in the past have generated revenue from businesses who have paid us there's two things. There's like a ad model. So for example, we work with training providers who offer free online training around the world. So like IBM, Skills Build, Microsoft, Cisco, all the big corporates that offer free training, even banks, Santander, Barclays, they all share their training through Naya.
Nice.
Some of those training providers pay to share their training and then to get insights into how many people are engaging with that training, where those people are from, how those people are then progressing in their careers. So for those organizations, it's more around like curriculum development, making sure that what they're building is not only being used, but is actually valuable in someone's career journey. So that's how we monetize, through training providers. And then you've got employers. So we've also got companies who have paid Naya to access a bigger talent pipeline. So the way that Naya engages users is, well, it's free for anyone to sign up and to use, but we have partnerships with hundreds of different charities, training providers, schools, universities, local government, organizations who are working actually on the ground with people who are historically quite unconnected and kind of unreachable. So rather than a business having to build out 50 different partnerships, instead they can come through Naya and access talent who has come from all of those different sources. So there's kind of two different angles, whether you're an employer or a training provider. We, at the moment, the amount of engagement that we're getting through WhatsApp at the moment, through clicks alone, is like out of this world, to the point where we're like, actually, it probably makes more sense that we activate a CPC ad-based model sooner than a subscription-based model for employers. The only thing is, we also want to make sure that obviously we're giving people recommendations based on what's right for them, not based on what we're getting paid for. So
and that is the issue,
yeah, exactly. So we will always, it will probably just be like a bit like in Amazon, like even if you're paying for Amazon Prime, you're going to see like a couple of sponsored options at the top, but also you're going to get signposted to the right thing for you. So we're going to be doing some experimentation around it, but the whole processing and working out what revenue model works best will again boil down to user value. Yes. Like if users are like, I don't want these sponsored things, or they're not clicking through because they think it's spammy and not a good recommendation, then that's not happening.
I guess it's always a balance, because user value means you've got the money to continue running it too, I guess. So I guess some sponsored is okay.
And you don't, like, for example, you don't get the clicks if you don't have the users. So it's just a circle, right?
And final question. What is the lowest moment you've had running Naya?
The lowest moment has actually come through like outside Naya life happening in, so when you're a founder and there's a lot going on and you're channeling so much energy into building your business, you can do that if you have stability outside of work. There has been quite a few instances this year especially where for me that stability has fallen away outside of work. Various different reasons, but it just makes the pressure harder to navigate. So wasn't due to Naya.
It was just balancing.
Yeah, but it's an adjustment, I suppose.
How have you even overcome?
Yeah, it's I think actually one of the most important things for me through that was making sure that my co-founder was aware of where my head was at. And if I needed additional space, it's more like you have to understand how it might impact the way that you're presenting yourself at work. No different to how, if someone is stressed out, then they will naturally present themselves in a slightly different way. It might be that your communication is like a little bit shorter. And so as a result, just making the team aware of the fact that that's where you're at right now. You don't have to dive into the details. Like,
do you think
you don't
it's
have
important
to
not to
pour out your soul. No, I don't. I think it's different for everyone. Same with this whole concept of like bringing your whole self to work, or like bringing your authentic self to work. I think everyone should choose what their authentic self at work looks like. And for me, actually being able to share really openly what is happening outside of work with my colleagues helped a lot. But for some people, they might not feel comfortable doing that, and that's okay. Like, it should be fine for them to just say to you, I'm dealing with some stuff right now. This is where I'm at. As a result, I may be offline and online at weird times, or I might be, just navigating things slightly differently, and just making people aware of what behaviours are changing and what will therefore impact them, rather than necessarily kind of bearing all. But yeah, I would say that's kind of been the low, but routine helps massively. It's also just understanding yourself and how you process and deal with things. On one hand, for me, I found that I actually went the other way and was then just throwing myself into work. And my co-founder is the same. Like, when anything goes wrong, both of us are just like Naya to kind of block out everything else that might not be going.
Is that helpful?
Smooth. Is it helpful? No, of course it's not, because you're not finding the time to you're not finding the time to process things properly. There's only so long that you can do that, right?
Do you think?
Before then it's like, oh shit, look at all of this stuff that I haven't been dealing with because I've just been pretending it's not a thing and just channeling the business. So it's a distraction. Whether it's a really healthy distraction, I don't know. I think you have to invest in your life outside of the business as well as just the business if you want your business to do well.
Fairs. Interesting. And thank you for sharing that. I read this review about Naya and it really stuck out to me. This person said, Naya's coach has made finding and applying to jobs so much easier. Recently, it anticipated the exact questions the interviewer asked, and I got the job. And I thought that was amazing. And I just wondered, what does the future look like for Naya?
Lots more of that. Yeah, as I said earlier, we want to help 100 million people. And the reason why that's our North Star is because there are so many people out there who are not in work or not in the right work or not happy in the work that they're in, and everyone deserves the chance to be able to find a way into a career that works, especially because how long we work for in our lifetime, right? Yeah. So the future of Naya is we're continuing to build out the different features within the WhatsApp tool. So literally every single week we're adding new features, deepening the functionality of like your mock interviewer and optimizing things to make sure that we're not only offering people like free and quick guidance and support, but also like the best quality support that's out there. For us, we're like, this is going to be the key differentiator in the market. That's the focus for now. Next year, we're going to be launching our app on mobile and desktop, which basically supports the chat. So enabling people to actually visualize their career progress based on the way that they're interacting through the tool. So any opportunity that you've applied to, any mock interview you completed, you'll actually be able to measure that program through an actual platform, if you will, if you want to. And then down the line, we want to get to like digital twins. So essentially you have a digital twin that knows what your career goals are. Nice. Your career goals are anchored to not necessarily like a role or something like that, but based on your desired career outcome. So it could be one person's outcome might be that they want to be able to spend more time with their kids. One person might be that they want to be earning this much money. One person might be that they want a portfolio career that will give them the diversity in one area, creativity, etc., etc. Someone being able to set those parameters, and then the digital twin actually go out and start bringing the job, basically being like, you've just got this job offer.
Brilliant. Yeah. And final question is, what's one thing you'd tell your younger self?
Anything. Have fun along the way.
Yeah. And actually, can I give another final question?
Yeah.
What's the best thing about being an entrepreneur?
It is so fun.
Okay.
Like, honestly, that would be, I have fun every single day. And it's like, yeah, you get to call the shots and all this kind of thing, but like, that's not what makes it. It's the fact that you are able to craft a working environment that is like exactly how you want it to be.
Yeah.